My name is Jenna. I'm the new medical consultant for Box Angle Bands, and I just want to welcome you to the first Medical Monday. It's really exciting. We're going to talk about injury prevention this week. It's very important. I have 5 different tips that I'll take you through, just short little blurbs of things that you can remember as you're starting your marching season. So the first one I want to talk about is routine stretching. It's really important to know the differences between the 2 main types. There's something called static stretching, and then we have dynamic stretching. Static is when you're just holding a position. It's common through elementary school, all the things you learn first off in gym class, and then you move into dynamic stretching. That's something that involves movement. So that's very applicable to this population because you're constantly on the move. So I do encourage you, we'll have a different segment later talking about fitness where we'll go through stretches, but try to start incorporating both static and dynamic stretches to help with injury prevention of all your muscle groups. Basically the goal with stretching is to increase your flexibility, so you want to make sure that you're really focusing on everything that's coming through your muscles. Next, I want you to focus on knowing and also listening to your body's limits. It's really important to understand that if you do have a pain, you shouldn't push through it. Pain isn't necessarily a bad thing. I don't want you to connotate pain with being bad. It just means that your body's trying to tell you something. So that's usually a good indicator that you should be listening to your body and then moving forward with maybe seeing a physician or someone to take care of it for you. In addition to that, you should also be hydrating appropriately, eating balanced meals, and also sleeping the appropriate time for your body. So if you're between the ages of 14 and 17, it's recommended that you sleep between 8 and 10 hours a night. If you're between the ages of 18 and 25, you can get away with 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. And I understand sleep is hard to come by, especially when you're a student, you're all busy, you have activities, but you do want to try to hit that goal marker if you can, just because it really helps your body to recover and get in the best shape that you can. Moving on to our third point, you want to make sure that if you have a lingering ache or pain that you're not drawing it out. It should be something that's a priority for you to make sure you're getting it taken care of. So I highly recommend, if you have something that's been lingering for a while, whether it's a sore muscle or a weird pop or crack that you felt in a knee joint or a shoulder joint, you go and talk to a primary care doctor about that, or maybe if you have an athletic trainer at your school, you can go talk to your athletic trainer. There's a lot of resources you can have for medical professionals. If you don't have that available to you, you can at least talk to a parent or a friend or someone who thinks that could help you get to that right person. There are different types of conservative management that you can look into, generally with musculoskeletal injuries that are bones, joints, tendons, ligaments. We do recommend the principle of RICE, which stands for rest, ice, compression, and elevation. And that usually does help with some of those aches and pains, sprains and strains that you're going to have throughout your marching season. In addition to that, maybe you can talk to someone to get an over-the-counter brace, maybe at a Walgreens or a CVS, one of the drugstores that's in your area, or even a specialized brace from an orthopedic surgeon or a sports medicine doctor. They're all good resources for you. There also is a potential for you to get more strengthening or conditioning of a certain body area that you are struggling in or might be deficient in. That might be something where you can work with a physical therapist and get specific exercises that are applicable to what you're feeling. So those are all different kind of resources you can look at to kind of be proactive and take charge of your health. The next point that I want to talk about is that you should be taking rest days. That's something that's hard to come by, especially if you're someone who's about to go into drum corps for the first time. Rest is not something that's in our vocabulary, especially in the summertime. So I do highly recommend that you start treating your body well in the off season, especially if you're in a WGI group or an indoor drum line or maybe some other kind of pre-season marching activity right now. You really want to focus on getting that rest and that recovery period going right now. So with that, just make sure you take at least 1 or 2 days off during the week to give yourself some time to just not do any exercise, not do any physical exertion, really just give yourself some time to really focus on what your body needs, whether it's hydration, eating a good meal, or just sleeping, catching up on sleep. And the last point is you want to have some mindfulness with some of these goals that you're setting for yourself. A lot of you are going to be very lofty, you're going to be thinking big picture ideas, which is great, and I do encourage that. But at the same time, you also want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself mentally in the aspect of, is it something that's attainable? Is it something that you can do in the long term? So I do encourage making goals, but give yourself some leeway so that you can continue to grow and work through that process. And another thing that you do want to make sure is you have some positive self-talk. You're doing a great job, whether you think you are or not. It's all a process, and you also want to make sure that you have a good support system, whether that's through me or Jordan, who's our CEO of Box Angle Bands, or maybe that's your friends, maybe that's some coworkers. Just find some people that you feel comfortable talking with, and then set those goals, and then try to attain them in the best way that you can. So hopefully those quick tips were something that you found valuable. If you have any other questions or comments, feel free to comment below. Otherwise, we will have an article later this week with more tips and tricks and even more information on this than we had in this video. So thanks for joining us for this first Medical Monday, and hope to see you next week.